Okay, first of all, let's start if any of you have any questions. Do you have any questions from the previous sessions? Any comments or questions? Okay, let's go ahead. So the total quality approach for quality management. We've been talking about service quality, some issues. Now we we want to focus a bit more on total quality. So the topic is what is quality, total quality approach, the definition, two views of quality, key elements of total quality, the total quality pioneers, keys to total quality success, how Six Sigma achieved, and a future of quality management. So some of the factors discussed in this class. So first of all, the total quality approach to quality management. The quality has been defined in a number of ways when viewed from a customer's perspective. It means meeting or exceeding the customer's expectation. Yes, I can absolutely do that. Okay, can everyone hear me now? Can you hear me loud and clear? Can you confirm, please? Okay, very good. I don't know. I'm almost shouting, and I don't know why you can't hear me. It's probably your speaker, because who has problem hearing my voice, and who has a clear and loud voice? So, Ms. Marjamina, you have problem hearing my voice, or you can hear it loud and clear? Oh, okay. I see. Okay. Welcome. Okay. Yeah, most of you don't have problems, so I'm assuming those of you who can't hear me well, is probably there is a button that increases your voice on your desktop if you're using PC, so you can increase it to the max, or if you're using earphones, make sure it's on the highest volume. So that's all I can tell you. Okay. So getting back to definition of quality. So the quality is defined in different many ways, but in the eyes of the customers is when it's meeting their expectation or exceeding it. So a lot of times customers have their perception might be different from the one that you have as their product or service provider. But according to their perception, you might not be offering them a good quality because you're not meeting their expectation, which might be much higher than what you were offering them before. So that's very important to realize that a lot of times customers just look at you or try to measure your quality according to their definitions. Total quality is an approach to doing business that attempts to maximize an organization's competitiveness through the continual improvement of the quality of its product, services, and people, processes, and environments. So total quality is a continuous approach. When it comes to total quality, I mean, quality of just one performance, one service, or one product is just you try to focus on that certain product and maximize that quality. But when it comes to total quality approach, is that the organization or the company tries to maximize its competitiveness through the continual improvement of its products and services. So it's like a continuous project that is going on, and you're trying to improve your quality all the time. So So the difference is, for one-time quality improvement, you just focus on that certain project, certain product, or certain service, try to improve the quality, and when it's done, you're set. But when it comes to a total quality improvement, you try to improve the quality like a continuous process. So that's a major difference that you'll see. So key characteristics of a total quality approach are as follows. It's a strategically based. So basically, if you remember in our business strategy class, we talked in detail about different strategies. So total quality management is also a strategic way of going about. So basically, you have different levels of strategy. You could use SWOT analysis or whatever analysis to make sure you're on the right path. You need to have a vision. You need to have like where you want to go, how you want to strategize it, different strategies. Sometimes you want to do a cost leadership strategy. Sometimes you want to do a differentiation strategy. All these for you to improve the quality. So sometimes you want to improve the quality within the limit of the budget that you have, so you probably don't have extra money. You want to do it with the same amount of money that you have. Sometimes you want to invest in that, okay? So all these are strategically focused. So TQM is basically a strategic move. Then it's customer focused. As I just explained in the previous slide, it's the definition of the customer that matters. If the customer thinks you are low quality, even though you think you are high quality, you will be low quality. Because it's the customer's definition that matters. The customer is the one who will use your product and will get a conception of your product, and then they will decide whether they conceive of your product of a high quality or low quality. Then long-term commitment. So, obsession with quality. So in this total quality, you are really concerned about quality. Just discussed that it's a continuous process, so you try to find every single loop in your processes and try to remove it, you try to eliminate it, you try to better it. It's a scientific approach. So with a scientific approach, you have an assumption that you want to improve the quality, and you have some basically a topic is like how to improve the quality on that certain project, on that certain service you do, and then you try to use a method to improve it. You try to use analysis, so you try to analyze to realize exactly where you are currently and how you want to better it. You use different strategies and methods to implement them and make it better. So it's actually scientific. It's long-term commitment. So total quality management is a long-term commitment. It's not just a one-time project deal. You do it on every single process you do. You do it continuously. You do it all the time, and you can always try to better. That comes from the concept, the Japanese concept that we talked about, which is Kaizen, which is change is good, and you are all the time trying to make it better. Like General Electric, you're trying to make it better every single attempt that you do. You believe there is a better way of doing it, and you try to make it done. Then it's teamwork. The key here is teamwork, because the quality improvement, especially when it comes to companies, is not a one guy task. It's actually a teamwork. Every single person in that company is involved in improving the quality, and if not everybody is taking their part and trying to get it done, it's not going to be possible. So it's really important to understand the teamwork side of total quality management. Like as I mentioned in my example before in the previous section for GE, Jack Welch in General Electric has come up with this method of continuous coaching. So basically, everybody's coaching one person. You take on a coach and a mentor-mentee kind of approach, and that mentor is all the time trying to improve you. And basically, a lot of times the mentor-mentee is like a both-way scenario, which means you are a coach to a mentee and also a mentee to that guy. So you're at the same time coaching them and also getting coached, so from the same guy. So that way you are trying to just pair up your employees and try to help them monitor each other. So wherever most of them are either like just co-workers at the same level, or sometimes it's like a supervisor and one guy at the lower level. So basically what we do, you're monitoring each other all the time. So that's really a continual process and the teamwork. And the beautiful side of it is employee involvement and empowerment. So when it comes to coaching, like what we are talking about, it should be based on the empowerment you give to the employees. You can't just expect your employee to coach the other peer without them having some power, some authority to make some changes. Because when you're focusing and making change an everyday practice of your organization, you gotta make it possible. You can't have tons of paperwork for change if you are claiming that your company is a total quality approach kind of company, and you want changes like happen all the time. Because if it's going to take forever for change to happen, and then you're trying to make it possible, and every single time you're trying to get your employees to make those changes and implement them, it's actually not practical. So you got to make change easy in your company. You got to make it possible by empowering and involving your employees. So when employees are involved, they see the point and value in that. They know that they have the authority to make the change possible in order to do a better job. They don't think that change is just some extra regulation or something extra that they should do. They look at it as something they are implementing. So they look at it as something that they are utilizing to make it work better, you know? Because like being an employee, you would just do what you're told, unless you're involved, unless you think you're part of the organization like deeply and thoroughly, so that whatever you do is actually helping to do the process better. So you come up with better ideas. You're doing it forever, so you know ins and outs of it. So you know what are the parts that are the loops, and you try to remove them. So the first attempt is you remove those loops or problems that you realize. Then you start doing it again, and after using it, you see certain parts that are still missing or not, efficient. You try to revise it again and again and again. You would only be able to do that if you're empowered to do so. And it's a continual process improvement. As I said, it's just a continuation of process changes. So if you are looking at the total quality management, you got to have this perception that it's a continuous process. If you are a person or your company is a kind of company that is conceiving of change as something one time, you just change and that's it, it's not going to work for you. It's for those companies that look at things as ever changing, all the time changing. So when it's all the time changing, forever changing, you will be able to be part of this process. and then bottom-up education and training. So traditionally, as we have discussed in leadership class, it used to be top-down approach. It used to be there was a top guy, there was a leader, a CEO, a manager who would tell everyone else what to do, and they would just do it. But when it comes to total quality management, and that's why it's so successful, and that's why it's a Japanese cultural thing, is because it comes from the bottom. It comes from the employee. The employee tells you, hey, you told us to do this way, but there are these loops and problems and challenges. We want to make it better, so these should be removed. And those are the best people to ask from, because you as a manager, you just have an overall view. But those who are actually doing it have the better experience of really how it works and how it should be done. So when it comes to you from the bottom up, it's really like hands-on approach rather than just theoretically telling them what to do and they try to make it. And a lot of times practical versus theoretical don't match. There's a big gap in between. And this method can help you just bridge that gap, help you take that gap away, Then you have freedom through control. That's actually a very ironic concept, but it's been practiced and it's very successful. A lot of times you think that you are not free in your control, but this time, because you're empowered and you are yourself are controlling. You have self-control and a peer control in action. So this actually is part of a concept called freedom in an organization because the bottom side, because the employees are empowered. So that's in a sense, they're free to make changes, but how it's done is through control, through monitoring, through continuous monitoring of each other. So that's how these two different concepts, which seem to be paradoxical, are actually married and intermingled to each other. It's actually very, very possible to be in control and free. Basically, when you're free, you're in control. So when you're in control, it means that you are able to make changes. You have the authority. And then finally, you have unity of purpose. Unity of purpose in the sense that you have one purpose, one goal in mind. As I discussed, and as we discussed before, the goal in mind was to make the changes possible, to better the process, to improve the quality all the time. And when everybody in the organization has that mindset and purpose, then it would be much easy to implement it because everybody is striving and trying hard to make it happen. So it's just something that everybody has in mind. That's why it's a teamwork, because if just a CEO or a manager of the company who wants to make the changes and has that in mind, then it's really difficult for you to basically, do that. But when everybody is involved and everybody's sharing the same view with you, that's much easier. The rationale for total quality can be found in the need to compete in the global marketplace. In business strategy, we discussed about the global competition. We need to have the competitive advantage. One of the best competitive advantages you could ever get is this quality improvement. Like total quality is one of the best competitive advantages that a company has. Like Toyota has been claiming to have a TQM for years, and they absolutely are one of the best. Or Honda. These companies are focusing on total quality management, and they believe it gives them a competitive advantage in the global marketplace. Countries that are competing successfully in the global marketplace are seeing their quality of living improve. So, as you can see, the successful companies in global markets, they are improving and bettering their quality of living. Those that cannot are seeing their decline. So basically, the quality has to be improving all the time. We discussed this concept of stagnancy and improvement. We said that this was basically in marketing that we covered it, if you remember. We said that we are trying to grow. We are trying to grow. If you are staying where you are and you think you're doing a good job, you're actually not. Because staying where you are is not considered a good performance, is not considered improvement. Improvement should be part of what you do every day. You got to be able to do it better every single attempt. Like the next attempt should be better than the previous, and that's possible. It's only possible if you set your standards and performance, gauge it according to yourself. Like this time, you did it according to this performance level. If you increase your performance level to a higher or next level, you could absolutely increase the quality. So you can see that countrywide they can do it, or even organization or NGO or whatever segment that you're working on, you can absolutely implement it. So it could be from the huge side of the country itself, or organizations or companies within a country. Okay. So any questions so far? Any comments? Any comments on the concepts discussed? Okay. Very good. So let's go to the next slide. So if you remember, like the first session, we used the Edward Deming. Edward Deming basically he's a guru. He's a guru in service quality, and we discussed it in our class, the first session, that if you can measure it, you can improve it. So that's actually one of his major ideas. He's a guru in service quality, and he comes up with all these different aspects. And basically, let's just overview some of these points that he has. So basically, the 14 points of Edward Deming, he basically covers to creating constancy. Let me share my desktop with you guys so that you can see me. Okay. As you can see here, Edward Deming was a statistician. He was an engineer, and with the rise of Japan, he came up with the total quality management and actually high quality goods with expensive machinery. In the 60s, he was awarded Medal of Japanese Emperor for his service. So basically, his 14 points are as follows. First of all, is to create constancy of purpose towards improvements. So the constancy covers the continual part, the part that is basically being continually improving. It's basically on the same concept that we said, that it's not a one-time short-term improvement, it's actually a continuous improvement. So you're improving every single attempt. It's like a continuous process, constantly improving towards your goals. So there is no end to it. There is no finish line to it. So that's the first point. The second point is adopt the new philosophy. Implication is that management should actually adopt his philosophy rather than merely expect the workforce to do so. So, so it's actually the involvement part. So adopt the new philosophy, which is so the management should be actually practicing what they're doing and in being involved in the process. So the management is actually completely involved in the improvement process. It's not just that they expect the lower levels to improve and the management is just dictating it. It's actually management part of the team and they're actually doing it as well. See dependence on inspection. If variation is reduced, there is no need to inspect manufactured items for defects because there won't be any. So that is also a beautiful concept. What happens is most of the companies, they have this inspection thing that they are doing the business according to their procedures with the certain standards, and once in a while, let's say once in a year or twice in a year, there would be an inspector coming in, see if they comply with the requirements. So that's a normal practice. What we have in total quality management is that you don't really rely only on inspection because you don't really need that because you're reducing the variation all the time. So basically reducing all the variations and defects, you won't need the inspection. You basically save the inspection costs and all that because you're inspecting yourself all the time. There's inspection going on continuously all through the process. That's how you don't need that the dependence on the inspection. Move towards a single supplier for any one item. Multiple suppliers means variations between feedstock. So one other aspect, if you remember in our business strategy, we had the value chain and for the integrations also, like the vertical integration. You had the suppliers above you, before you would supply your stuff. And also the email logistics part about the value chain, you would bring in your products. But when you move towards a single supplier for every item, you focus on that item and that single supplier for that item. You're able to work together so that you set up sort of same quality kind of, because if you are changing suppliers all the time, in a sense the quality is varied because it's very difficult to get the same quality from different suppliers. So it's really good to focus on one supplier and then work the standards and quality and all these policies with that. So they will be part of your team. So that's another concept. Number 5 is you try to improve constantly and forever. So basically, that constant strive to reduce variation is the key. You constantly try to sort of eliminate the flaws and mistakes. Then number 6 is institute training on the job. So as I said, you basically have that mentor-mentee or coaching and coachee that you're all the time coaching and training on the job. If people are inadequately trained, they will not all work the same way, and this is variation. So your major focus is to reduce variation. One of the ways to reduce variation is through training. So if your employees or your peers or your staff are training all the time, or they are mentoring each other all the time, you're reducing variation. You're improving all the time and reducing variation. So one employee's performance shouldn't be much different from the others. If everybody's on the same level, then you will get to a point that you have like a very high standard of performance, right? So number 7 is instill leadership. So Deming makes a distinction between leadership and mere supervision. The latter, quota and target based. Okay. If you remember from our leadership class, the leadership is not just telling people what to do, It's not just supervising them. It goes one step beyond that, and it's involving them and basically have a target. You have a goal. You set a goal, and you work with your employee, your staff, your mentee towards that goal. So you're walking them through. It's just you are part of the project, and it's a leader. You do it together. It's not just that the employee does it. Drive out fear. Deming sees management by fear as counterproductive in the long run because it prevents workers from acting in the organization's best interest. So if you are a leader, a manager, and you're just leading by fear, you're causing fear in your employees and just leading them by fear, you're absolutely expired. That way is not the right way, and your performance is not going to work. The only way for you to make it work is through leadership, true leadership, which is not based on fear. It's based on performing together. Then number 9 is break down barriers between departments. So a lot of times we have these departments in a company. Like one department has its own bureaucracy, its own staff or whatever, and the other department is totally a different planet. So for them to communicate, for them to work together is so difficult. So in Deming's approach for total quality management, you got to reduce that barriers. You got to reduce those walls. You got to do it like together as one team. So internal customer. So the concept of internal customer, which is each department serves on the management, but the other department that use its output, is really helpful. So if you really consider one department that is getting your actions resolved as a customer, which is your internal customer, that will change the whole scenario. Because if you guys are all like departments, and you just think of them as departments and say, okay, that's another department, we don't care. It's very different from the time that you say that department is like our customer. We want them to be satisfied. We want them to get the best service or product ever possible. That way, it's really a different scenario. That way, that department will get the best possible outcome from you, and they will do the same for the next department involved. So that's actually a teamwork. This is a beautiful way of teamwork. Then number 10 is eliminate the slogans. Another central TQM idea is that it's not people who make most mistakes. It's the process that are working within. Harassing the workforce without improving the processes they use is counterproductive. So this is also, these points are also, a lot of them are foundations of Six Sigma as well. So when you reduce the slogans, when you reduce the processes that are flawful, which are full of mistakes, you're actually helping the productivity and performance and quality of the process you're doing. Because if you're just focusing on the processes rather than the performance of people, you will lose out. Because a lot of times we say our processes are okay. It's just the performance of the employees which are not okay, which is not always the case. According to Deming, most of the time, if you have the right employees, it's your processes that could be revised and better. So if you have a better process, your employee is just fine. You don't need to change the employee. You need to change the process when it's not working. So that will be counterproductive if you just put all the blame on the employee rather than those parts that could be changed, those processes that are not really useful. Eliminate management by objectives. So Deming saw production targets as encouraging the delivery of poor quality goods. So when you have certain objectives in mind, When you approach those objectives and you get those objectives, you don't necessarily need to be managed all the time. You have goals and projects at hand, and you just work through those projects. So that's also very useful. Remove barriers to pride or workmanship. Many of the other problems outlined reduce work satisfaction. So you try to make pride and satisfaction part of the workmanship. You try to make it a joyful experience for them. And then institute education and self-improvement. So you definitely want them to educate themselves and learn the process all the time. It's an education all the time. So it's learning going on all the time. That's how you are making that change possible. That's how you're making that improvement possible, by education. And then you finally transforming. You transform everyone's job. You basically trying to transforming everyone's job from the previous version of what they were doing to what they should be doing. So it's just transformation happening all the time. So it's really important for you to realize that the work they're doing is transforming, is changing. So what they're doing now is different from the job they were doing before. So that's a transformation that is happening all the time. One of the shortcomings that Deming was always blamed for was that he always put forward a lot of goals, but he didn't put a lot of tools to get them possible. So basically, that's when Six Sigma and a lot of tools came in to implement his ideas, because his ideas were just ideas, and they were not necessarily implementable. Okay. So that's about the 14 points and how he basically helps the corporations. Okay, any questions now? Do you guys have any questions? Okay, so now let's go to the 7 deadly diseases of management. Okay, let me just share my desktop with you. Okay. So here we have 7 deadly diseases of basically management. The first one was lack of constancy of purpose and plan. To plan a product and service that will have a market and keep the company in business and provide jobs. So very much related to all those 14 points, the constancy should be also towards the planning the product and service. That is provided in the market, and it should keep the company in the market. So as long as the focus is on the short-term thinking, management will fail to produce a plan accordingly. So without good long-term planning, workers' efforts will be irrelevant. And more significantly, this disease is warning that total quality management cannot be fed. If management changes its policy, well, whatever was the latest book it read, then there will be no long-term forward progress. So that's actually very important, and it happens in a lot of, companies that are not doing well. They're changing their plans, their long-term plans all the time, because they don't have any long-term plans. They just have short-term plans. It's good to have short-term goals. That's don't mistake, but it's definitely a must-have. It's actually a long-term goal, long-term plan. And companies and managers who are not able to come up with long-term plans are actually falling into that category of unsuccessful companies that they definitely won't be able to do their total quality management. So that's really important. Number two is emphasis on short-term profits, short-term thinking, just like the opposite of constancy. So if you focus on short-term and that fear of unfriendly takeover will take you, because every management that changes, the whole scenario, the whole atmosphere is going to change. That's like definitely not a good idea for making profits. So basically the constancy, the overall long-term side of it is really, really important. There's nothing easier to do than boost the profits in short term. In short term, you can absolutely do boost the profit. But what happens in the long term? All managers has to do is to cut any expense related to the long term, like training, maintenance, purchase of new capital. As you can see, these are all parts of cost to you in the beginning. You have to incur cost in order to train your staff. That's definitely costly, but it will give you the benefit in the long run. It will pay you back in the long run. If you train your employees will perform much better in the long run. But right now that you're incurring those costs and making those expenses, you absolutely, of course, taking it out of your profit. And short term would say just eliminate all those because you might make more money. But long-term goal will tell you if you do that, you'll fail because that's just the short term. And long term, which is the constancy, will encourage you to do that. So you see the difference? For non-profit like schools or hospitals, something like emphasis on short-term costs instead of emphasis on short-term profits. These institutions specifically, or especially the budget crisis, focus on cutting the short-term costs without regard to the long-term consequences. So a lot of times, companies just try to cut costs. They try to eliminate a lot of stuff, and then later on, they can't do it anymore. They'll lose customers. You want to maintain your customers and then reduce your costs in order to make more profit. What you don't realize, when you're cutting all those stuff that you have, your customers don't perceive the same quality of your products or services, and that's why they'll leave you. So you got to have the big picture in mind when you are dealing with improvements. Number three is the personal review systems or evaluation of performance, merit rating, annual review, or annual appraisal. But whatever name for people in management, that the effects of which are devastating. Management by objective on a go, no-go basis without a method of accomplishment of the objectives is the same thing by another name, management by fear will still be better. So basically what it says is a personal review system. Basically, that's a shift from just following the procedures and policies. You have that inspector coming in, looking at you, saying if you're good or not. What makes it better is to have a personal review system. That coach-coachee, mentor-mentee system will help you to monitor yourself all the time. And when you do that, you don't necessarily need to be inspected. And if you're inspected, you're beyond those policies and minimum requirements. Minimum requirements mean nothing to you now because you're way above that. You don't even need that anymore. So by that, the essential problem of merit system is that the reward results rather than the process improvement. So basically, in the previous system, which was just the merit system, you had to get something and you had to follow some procedure, some minimum requirements to get rewards. But in this personal review system, you are basically improving the processes. So in the previous system, you are focusing or over focusing on the processes, but you're not improving them. You think that your processes are accurate and absolutely correct. So whatever problem there is just with your employees. But that's not necessarily the case. A lot of times those processes are just for now they are the best possible, but they could always be improved. And that's how you get better. So some managers want to reward people who cooperate more or who seem to have better attitudes. These managers will insist that they can recognize the people who are most cooperative and have highest work ethic. But when managers reward these attitudes, however, they're setting up a system that will have two fundamental flaws. First is it encourages kissing up to the boss, and B, a psychological research indicates that the best way to develop a cooperation is not through money rewards, but rather through focusing on the nature of work environment and stuff. So you see that difference in management. Like here, like it's the common practice that when you do a great job, the manager will reward you with bonuses, money, and all that. But in Denny's approach, the 7 deadly diseases is that you don't do that because you're creating an attitude that employees just try to be pleasing their managers, and the whole focus is on the reward, not rather than on the work environment or the processes. But when you are like a team together, everybody's involved, everybody's monitoring each other. You don't basically need all these. Everybody's involved and everybody's bettering the quality. So that's, of course, much different. Number 4 is mobility of management, like job hopping, the transition. Mobility of management is like management is not just a clear-cut management place. This is perhaps the simplest and yet one of the most deadly disease. When top management changes organizations every 3 or 4 years, that means continuous improvement efforts will be broken and disjoined, and the new leaders come on board. Moreover, with changes of leadership, there is frequently a change in management philosophy. How can there be a constancy of purpose in such an environment? When management has no commitment to long-term, how will they ever start thinking long-term? Managers will have an eye on the next promotion or results now to gain the next rung on the ladder. So that's the common practice that the managers want to go to the next level. They just think at short term. So when they have this mindset of the short term of that job is being done, how could they possibly come up with a long-term goal for their staff? You know, like Japanese companies that they implemented that, or even General Electric, they were in long-term employee kind of concept. So that manager were there for a long time, and the whole project as it was improved would move with the same team towards a better level, next level. So instead of just employees single-handedly move or jump to the next level, the whole team together will jump to the next level. So that's a different scenario. That's what's happening in Google and Apple. Teams are assigned to projects, and teams are assigned the next project. So when you are a manager to a project, if you master that project, you could do to the next project and do it the same. You don't have to move or leave. You know, that's the commitment you have. So mobility of management is really important. When management is just hopping to the next level, is just leaving, you're just looking at short terms, looking at easy results that are not everlasting. That's not what you got to do. That's what you got to do is just to try to focus on the processes and improve them, and then the whole environment of work is based on improvement. This is not a common practice. This is not something that everybody is doing, but this is the best practice possible, and a lot of successful companies are actually doing that. So the next one here we have is number 5. Number 5 is use of visible figures. Visible figures only for management. So little or no consideration figures that are unknown or unknowable. So many consultants in the quality field have been quoted to say that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Certainly Deming would have been one of the first to argue that good data is essential and should be factored in all decisions. So going back to the same concept, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So you have to have a good data, good measurement tool. You have to have good statistics in place. You have to have good information in order to be a good manager. You can't just manage with no idea of what's going on. So Deming pointed out, however, that some facts are simply unknowable. So in spite of that, Deming insisted that leaders must still make decisions and manage this situation. For instance, if the quality effort is truly justified, then it should cause operating costs to decline and overall sales rise relatively to what would have happened otherwise. So sometimes you don't have a correct figure or an absolute figure, but you know overall that effort will be justified because it will reduce your cost, it will increase the sales. So overall, it's bringing benefit. So that's doable. So that leads to a basic dilemma. How do you know? But this leads to a basic dilemma. How do you know what would have happened if you have kept on doing your prior course? How would you put a dollar value on the customer loyalty won through quality improvement efforts? You can't. These numbers are unknowable. If you decide that TQM can be justified only if the benefits are clearly measurable, then you might leave these factors out of your analysis and erroneously conclude that TQM is causing losses when it's generating profits. So even though Deming is a very, very pro-measurement guy, he's a guy who is coming from engineering background, he's a guy who is really for measurement and measurement techniques. He is telling us that you can't just over-focus on figures. Sometimes, a lot of times, that loyalty of customer is not necessarily measurable. You're incurring costs to improve that quality. And of course, you're bettering off at the end of the day. Your sales are going up, but not necessarily like the way that like other companies that are just focused on immediate results getting figures. You won't be getting figures like them. But you as a manager of total quality management technique or the philosophy, you know that it's basically helping you. It's an unknowable fact and you know it, so you just do it. That's what Deming is telling us. It's just saying that don't over-focus on figures that you become a short-term guy looking for just the immediate results. Make sure you're looking at the profit with the long-run perspective. So that's actually very, very important. Then the next one is actually the excessive medical costs. So American auto companies pay more for medical care than they do for steel. So for the economy as a whole, healthcare as a percent of overall expenditures has steadily risen for decades, gradually pushing numerous businesses and government budgets into a state of crisis. Deming would have approved of the political system intending to reform healthcare. So one of the concerns of Deming was healthcare. Like a lot of insurances and like bonuses and like especially healthcare that is done by the company is bringing down the companies. So he thought that healthcare could be removed. I mean, that's a very American concept of it, though. It's like in European version or in some other countries, it's a totally different scenario. So it's just focusing on the cost that the company is paying for their employees. So this is very American version. So it's not necessarily applicable to universal version. Then the next one is basically number 7, which is the last one, is excessive cost of liability. Deming blamed America's lawyers in part for the problems of American business. The U.S. has more lawyers per capita than any other country in the world. They make their livings to a considerable extent by finding people to sue. So, like healthcare costs, Deming believed that solutions to this disease probably have to come from the government. So that is also one of the regulation part. Like in the U.S., a lot of attorneys are suing corporations, and that suing is one of the parts that's bringing down a lot of companies. And he believed that there should be some changes in regulations in the government. So that was one of the diseases he mentioned. So the last two, I would say, they're more of an American scenario. So it will change in like according to others. But the first 7 actually are universal. So number 1 was lack of constancy with the plan. So no long-term plan. The second one was emphasis on the short-term rather than long-term. The third one was personal review system, monitoring all the time. The fourth one was mobility of management. Management should be something that they look at it as a long-term, not just going to the next step. Next one was use of visible figures and numbers and measurement techniques. And of course, we had this idea of unknowable facts, that sometimes you need to go basically on the generating profit in the long term. And the last two, as I mentioned, they are more of, American version. Okay, so here we have a comment. You also offered an overview of America's financial crisis and how it compares to the economic crisis in the 80s when America began to discover Deming. Yeah, actually Edward Deming and Jack Welch and all these total quality management guys, they are implementing a lot of Asian cultural factors into American. They are Americanizing a lot of Japanese cultures. So, basically, that's how how they came in. It's like they are bringing some parts that were missing in American culture. And for your question, Mrs. Agu, the major obstacle in total quality management, I would say, is first of all, the commitment of management is like a teamwork and the concept of ever improving. To implement that is really a big challenge. To implement the fact that you are going to improve all the time, that sort of mentor-mentee, coachee kind of approach is not something very, very common. So it's really a big challenge. And the second very, very important one is the measurement. So in order to make improvement, you have to have measurement techniques, and you have to have them in place. You can't just go by gut feeling with total quality management. It's a lot of measurement involved, a lot of measurement. You gotta know where you are. You gotta improve it all the time, and it's only possible by measurement. Only possible by measurement, continuous measurement. You can't just rely on inspections that happens once a year. That's not gonna help you. TQM is just measurement all the time. Try to improve it all the time, and better the processes all the time. Six Sigma is one of the techniques that does that. And a lot of other, like Lean Six Sigma, a lot of other techniques involved. But it's not the only way. As Deming said, sometimes unknowable facts, you just do them. You don't have to just rely on the measurement. It's not an over-reliance that I'm promoting. I'm trying to tell you that the major challenge is to measure. Sometimes we can measure and we don't, We just have just some basic understanding and do it. We could do a better job if we could really measure it down and to the really final point. So that's for that 7 scenes, which is really useful also. Okay. So, is there any questions so far? We've been going pretty fast. I want to make sure that you guys are on the same page. So, any questions? Any comments or questions? Okay. So, let's see. There are a bunch of questions here. Yes, you can absolutely have these pages. I'll email you. Okay. Could you please be more specific? Mr. Deming didn't do anything for Japan. Mr. Deming was the one who came up with these ideas in the U.S. What I'm saying is he basically used all these ideologies and concepts of Japanese culture. So why excessive health cost is a concern as deadly disease in the U.S. Okay, so that's for what he did for Japan. He did it for U.S. for quality improvement. He was an American and he used it for America. But what I'm saying is he used those concepts from Japan. Then the next question is why accepting healthcare. In U.S. The way healthcare works, like in a lot of countries, healthcare is sponsored by government and there are a lot of subsidies given for healthcare. But when it comes to U.S., the healthcare is extremely costly, and the way it's done is that individuals will buy insurances, or their companies will have to buy them insurances. So basically, the company has to insure all the staff, and through insurance, you'll go to your health. You'll take care of your healthcare. Because otherwise it will be tremendously expensive and impossible. So everybody will buy some insurance. Either your company will give you some insurance and then you don't have to buy, or you just go privately and buy insurance. That's why it's a major concern in the U.S. And the reason it's one of the deadly diseases is because that insurance is pretty expensive. And the companies, when they have to buy insurance for their employees, they have to incur a lot of expenses. And that expense will cut down their profit. And when it cuts down their profit, a lot of them cannot cope because they have a lot of employees. And that will cost them to go even on the verge of bankruptcy or they fail, you know. So that's why Mr. Deming believed that the healthcare system was not of a practical one in the U.S. It's something that it should be revised, and it's actually on the process. President Obama is actually doing it. He has Obamacare in place, and he's trying to make some major changes in it. But yeah, that's what he meant. Okay, so Mr. Joseph Juron is also one of the guys that he's a guru. So I'd like to just show you some slides from his. Let me just share my desktop again. We will just cover a bit of it today, but we'll cover most of his ideas next sessions. But just for now, let's cover like a few slides. Okay. So as for Mr. Joseph Juron, he has been more than 70 more working years dedicated to relentless pursuit of quality projects. He's one of the major quality gurus. He added in a human dimension to today's total quality management, and then realized the root cause was people's resistance to change. He's one of those who is really for change. Was aboard the Order of the Sacred Treasure from Japan. So, yeah, Juron's experience and contributions, as you can see, 1925, Juron started working in the inspection department of Western Electric, and then was faced with many quality management challenges. Juron applied a statistical method of manufacturing problems. 37, became chief of industrial engineering at Western Electric home office. As you can see, he has been like involved in, it's not much of his background that we are going to look for. It's basically his definitions. According to Juron's definition of quality has two aspects from the customer's perspective. So quality is, number one, a greater number of features that meet customers' needs, and then fewer defects. So basically, you try to maximize features that meet customers' needs and reduce the defects. Very simple. Key attributes is like here's trilogy, and fitness for use, quality council, Pareto principle, and 10 steps to quality improvement. So, trilogy, to attain quality, you must begin by establishing the vision, policies, and goals of the organization. Converting these goals into results is done through three managerial processes called trilogy. So first, you do the quality planning. You need to have a plan, as you remember. We discussed this is a long-term plan. Then quality control, and then quality improvement. All these three are his findings. So quality does not happen by accident. It should be planned. According to him, the planning is a major key. So the structured process of designing products and services that meet new background and goals and ensure that basically customers' needs are met. So setting quality planning process. Okay, I want to stop here. I don't want to bombard you with all these new jargons and techniques and everything. Let's just pause. First, let's see if you guys have any questions. Regarding your question, Mrs. Ivoon, there is definitely a lot of criticism for total quality management today. That's why not all the companies are using it. One of the concerns is that some of these techniques will not give you immediate results. So that's why most of the companies are not necessarily using it. But, and it's a very big but, those companies that are using it are the most successful companies in the world. To name a few is Toyota, is General Electric, is basically a lot of Japanese companies like Honeywell that have captured the world. You know, these guys that are doing it, they really mean it, and they have beaten down the competition. Like nobody can compete with them. Like when the crisis happened, the financial crisis 2008, all the companies lost billions of dollars, and it's funny how the General Electric actually made over billions of dollars. So these companies that are doing it, they're doing it absolutely fine. But not every company is doing it because it takes a lot of knowledge, a lot of commitment, and not every company is that good to do it. So that's the major criticism. It's difficult, but when you get to do it, it's most rewarding. So that's regarding the criticism. So for sure, there's criticism for it, but there's criticism for everything. But you got to see what works for you, what is really helpful, what is not, and how we can implement it. So in that sense, you know, you got to see if it's something useful or worthwhile for you. Which I do believe that Worldwide Science Organization is offering this course because it's very, very important, the total quality management. Even for those who are not completely doing it, they are absolutely using the total quality management techniques. So they might not be a total quality management company, but they are using a lot of its techniques. So you might choose not to be just fully a total quality management company, but you can still benefit from a lot of these. And trust me, most of the companies are using all these techniques, but some of them are not just fully implementing them. Okay, any other questions? You're welcome. Are there any questions or comments before we go into the task? Because I want to give you a task and you know, make sure that you know you're good. No questions. Okay, so let's go to the task. Okay. Okay. So my question is, okay, the task would be, please identify how the 14 points of Deming is related to 7 deadly diseases, sorry. And or maybe I just simplify it for you. Please identify how your company can benefit from Deming's uh, 14 points. Okay, just keep it at that. Use a specific examples. Okay, please give me a specific examples of your company or organization. Please don't, if you don't work in a company, just fine. Organization, NGO, anywhere. Just how you can implement those and what are the benefits you can get from those that we just discussed. Now let me just put that on the desktop so that yes, right now. Please, we're going to discuss it, and you will email it to me by next day. And for your reference, I put that means points here, number 8. Put that down into number 8. Number 8 to number 14. So for now, I just copied and paste all these points for you here, so you have it. Currently requesting if you could send us. Sure, I'll send you the slide. I'll send Mr. Saeed the slide, and he'll share it with you. But just for now, you have all the 14 points in the chat box, so that you can have them. So just give you like 5 minutes or something, so you can think about it, and then I'll come and we'll discuss about it. Okay. Okay, so we have Mr. Akmal's answer. Hopefully, in our company management, in our company, actually where I am working is government organization. I can see the mobility in the management, which each new director or team leader comes to the board. Usually comes with a new team and or previous planning. Yeah, that's really a concern. That's really a big problem. A lot of companies, especially the government, as like even the president, when the new president comes to office, mostly they bring all these stuff, the policies, everything's going to change. So it's really hurting the company, the corporation, the organization, or whatever aspect you look at it. It's really not really useful because when you have good long-term plans you got to make them happen. If you just change your long-term plans every year, I mean, they are not long-term plans, and they are like short-term. So you rather just do the short-term instead of having a long-term because just every year having a new long-term plan is like it's like a catastrophe. It's not a good idea, not at all. So yeah, it's really a big problem. A lot of companies have that, and it's the total quality management. The reason these companies like GE have been so successful is because their management is really solid and it's not been moving that much. People are at their position for several years, and as I said, the projects will change, but the employees don't change because they are happy at the company. Okay, who wants to give us the next example? You can either talk or write it down in the chat box. Yeah, very much common in the government agencies, which is really bad. That's why they are so inefficient. Mostly government agencies are so inefficient. When you compare government parts with private sector, like here in U.S., if the performance level, we want to rate them from 0 to 100, government would fall in the below 50s, and private sector are way above in the top 50s, like in 70, 80%. So always government agencies are underperforming, all because of all these issues and problems. And that's also given the fact that U.S. Government is one of the most efficient ones, and this is how efficient they are compared to private sector. So it's really really a big challenge. You can see that yeah, sure. So yeah. So who else wants to share with us his example or her example? You can just type it down in the chat box, or you can just speak it up. Okay, Mr. Dragon, we have a logistic company. You can write some examples below. Need to meet the customer's expectation, improvement in service quality, and better competitive position. Have complete focus in inputs and providing good outputs, and best prices with best quality. Yeah, these are good, but we going back to Deming's, the 14 points. How would you categorize them? So constancy, probably you would rate let's say improvement of that quality into the constancy uh, of planets, right? And then uh, uh, single supplier regarding your better position in the market and better service quality, you probably want to go work with one supplier so that you can standardize your product, your quality, and then inputs, outputs to the customers. I would put it into uh, towards uh, the improving constantly and forever. That was what I meant. What I meant was not just general things. How do you, relate it to the 14 points? Like, let's say you would say, like, you would benefit from point number one this way, point number two this way. So I want the Deming's 14 points be the basis of your example. We'll have the continued improvement in our services and yes, very good. That's good, very good, yeah. So that's what I meant. Okay, very good. So everybody seems to understand it. So what I expect you all to do is please send me all these assignments by end of tomorrow. Is there any questions or comments before we finish the class? Any comments or questions? Everything is clear? Yeah, okay. Beautiful. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending the class. Summarize this. Yeah, the summarization of this class was we basically focused on total quality management this class. So we tried to define total quality management. We tried to use some of definitions and guidelines given by Deming and for the total quality and how to implement it. So next session we will dig deeper into by tomorrow, please. I don't want you to spend a lot of time. Just whatever we discuss, just put it in a paragraph and send it to me, like a couple sentences. So next session is too late. It's just the purpose is just a task in the class. You can actually send it to me right now if you want, because you have like 5 minutes, 10 minutes to do it in the class. So waiting until next session is because I don't want you to spend too much time on it. That's the reason. I want to keep it as an in-class activity. It's really not a big assignment. I don't want you to spend too much time on it. I just want to make sure everybody's following and, be able to give the examples. So that was the brief explanation of what we did in the class. Next session, we will dig deeper into total quality management and go from there. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week. Bye.